That's online. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Steve Miller, and I'm tonight's host for our fifth year of mostly monthly programs on numerous electrification topics related directly or indirectly to building electrification. Tonight's topic is virtual power plants are arriving in New Jersey. It's great news. First slide is, which is what you see now, is it's the grid of the future. It's starting right now in New Jersey. Every monthly program is online. You can view the index to all webinars, and I'll put that entry into the chat so you can look at anything previous with the topics for the last 4.5 years. I wanted to put a plug in for our New Jersey Electrification Coaching Network. We'll put a plug in the chat for that as well. And one thing you can do is either raise questions orally, or you can put questions in the chat if you can't quite interrupt, and Pat will make sure your question gets answered. Our speaker tonight is Thad Culley, who's Senior Director of National Regulatory Policy, has been with Sunrun for 5 years, and he previously was a regulatory lawyer and Senior Regional Director for Vote Solar, and prior to that was for many years a partner at the Oakland law firm working on distributed generation issues, including net metering, rate design, and interconnection. Thad earned his JD from Tulane Law School and a certificate in environmental law in 2010. My impression is Thad is really well versed on tonight's topic, so you are talking to the expert. Sunrun's first words to me were that other states already have virtual power plants. Where's New Jersey in this? They saw Governor Mikey Sherrill's executive order to quickly develop New Jersey virtual power plants, and now we are eager to help New Jersey. That's my introduction. At that, I turn the floor over to you.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks so much, Stephen. It's really great to meet everyone and at least see your names on the side. I know it's 7 p.m. Speaks a lot to dedication and intellectual curiosity. So, applause to everyone for coming out. And yeah, I hope I can make your time worth it as well. But and hopefully, if you're not enjoying or didn't already have dinner, you're enjoying a dinner or a beverage while I'm talking. So I do look forward to kind of having a relaxed conversation and going through this, and welcome all questions at any point. But yeah, I appreciate the background of my kind of bio. Really going all the way back, started off as a barista and a drummer and a guitarist and a singer, but
Wow.
found other things to do. But getting into law school, this was like one of the things that really got me excited. I wanted to go into environmental law, and then so much was happening around 2010 with renewable energy policy around the country. That really kind of lit my fuse, and I've been kind of chasing that ever since. So I think where this kind of story we're about to get into about virtual power plants kind of intersects with that is I was always really interested about customers having some agency and some sovereignty over what they do and how they consume electricity. So I was always gravitating toward policies and programs that empower customers to use their own power to generate their own power. So net metering, as we mentioned, was a huge and really one of the most successful policies in the history of the country in deploying solar, leveraging private capital and customers' own money to deploy assets and get them on the grid. So that's been a huge success. And I think what we're seeing now is as the needs of the electric system are growing, as we're grappling with affordability being, as you know, just a huge headline throughout the election season, and it's going to continue to be as far as I can see into the future. Everything that we're doing and talking about has to be aimed at solving grid problems, which are in a lot of ways cost problems as well as greening the grid and cleaning the grid. So I think all this kind of marries together that what we're talking about really is customers having assets at their house that they use that also can be used for kind of a public good that we're going to share some of the electrons, share for fair compensation, of course, share some of these electrons when the grid needs it the most. So I think that's maybe the tables, all the table setting I'll do on this, and we can maybe progress to the next slide. No, I'll wait for that. So really, all I'm going to talk about on the next slide is a little background on Sunrun. Like Steve mentioned, I've been with the company for 5 years, but been working on the issues with this company and in parallel when I was at Vote Solar, and then when I was in private practice, working on a lot of the same issues that kind of motivate or drive our business now. So I feel like I've been there almost from the start, 2007. That's when I started law school, so maybe close enough. So yeah, Sunrun started kind of innovating the solar as a service model. This is something like SunEdison. Actually, I'm going way back. I remember driving my car, working for my uncle and as a delivery driver for business cards, going to Office Max, and hearing an NPR story about how a company was upending 100 years of utility practice to be able to offer solar on a customer's house and actually on these were like commercial customers, I think the back on rooftops, and sell them the power directly, and how this could challenge the traditional monopoly utility. So that even back then, before I knew I wanted to get in energy, that story kind of piqued my interest. Well, in 2007, Sunrun was the first to extend that model to residential homes. So we have, solar leases and solar PPAs that allow, a customer to, do a long-term agreement where the system is maintained and operated on their behalf, and not having to put upfront money and all that. So, we take care of the interconnection. So that is really kind of the solar as a service model that's core to Sunrun and feeds into, I think, how we're becoming an effective virtual power plant provider as well. As you can see, our kind of progression as a company, we got, pretty big, pretty fast, and now we are the largest in the country with over 1.2 million customers. And a very much increasing percentage of those customers are adding batteries. Where over 70% of new installs have batteries, making them, if they had a program in their state, eligible to chip in and use that battery to help the grid. We have, a little under half currently that have that opportunity, but most that do have the opportunity are taking advantage of it. In places like California, Texas, Puerto Rico, our customers with solar and storage are able to make a little extra money by using their batteries when they don't need them. For backup power, they're able to export uh, kilowatt hours to the grid and be compensated for that. A little scale on the company, if we've installed over, I think it's probably getting closer to 8 gigawatts of solar, about a gigawatt a year. So that when people think about rooftop solar, sometimes they dismiss it as, well, is that really making a difference? Is it meaningful? Well, in aggregate, and that's the whole theme of virtual power plants, when we put everything together, it really does add up to real capacity that we as a country desperately need right now. So this is good timing for all these programs and opportunities to be created so that more people can afford to invest in solar and storage for their own use, and then receive this additional compensation for helping the grid and everyone. So I guess we can skip to the next. I'll take a pause here. So, what is a distributed power plant or virtual power plant is kind of the more popular common phrase. We've kind of clung to our guns and saying distributed power plant, just to say this is a very real. It's not virtual in the sense that these are real assets in the world that turn on and off and dispatch power into the grid just like a regular power plant. But the concept of a virtual power plant is a kind of a big tent. You can include some traditional demand response like smart thermostats that could be, controlled during called events where the utility sees a system peak event is happening and be able to dial down a degree or two and compensate that customer for their, maybe their discomfort for taking a little more heat. Um, could also do that with electric vehicles with, encouraging managed charging. We could, as we're seeing the technologies advance, use vehicles. And I think a lot of, like, I have a Chevy Equinox I got right before the tax credits expired. It's capable of doing dispatch to the grid. So it could export power if I had the right equipment in place in my home, which I don't yet. but one day I would like to do that. So we are seeing some examples of residential facilities being able to do this. PG&E, I'm sorry, BG&E, Baltimore Gas and Electric, Sunrun, and Ford Motor Company had a pilot where a customer with, or three customers particularly, had F-150 Lightnings and were able to, kind of dispatch those to the grid. I think that was kind of a first moment, not quite person on the moon or flying around the moon status of achievement as a society, but still it was a first, and we're very proud of that of happening and see a lot of potential when you think about all the battery capacity that's out there in the world rolling around the streets. That it could also be tapped into this virtual power plant model. But the most traditional thing that when we talk about a virtual power plant, we think about solar and batteries so that we are injecting clean power into the grid, and not just doing like smart thermostat to dial down how much energy we're using. We're actually not we don't just have brakes. We have an accelerator that we can go two ways here. We can put power onto the grid when it's most needed, serving the neighbor's house, reducing constraints on either the local grid infrastructure, like the substation and the circuit, or the system-wide system peak. I guess looking at this, some of the use cases, when you think what is a distributed power plant and what isn't. Well, there are some things that could elicit positive behavior from your solar and storage, or your EV. So if you had a time of use rate where you were rewarded for using more, using and shifting your power to off-peak times, that has a similar effect to if you were to, schedule a dispatch from your battery at that same time. Key difference being you build time of use rates based on averages across the year and across seasons. The thing that's unique about a virtual power plant, and particularly on these programs that are developed, is you can pinpoint the most critical moments and compensate those for what they're actually worth. So instead of averaging it all out and having a low kind of retail rate compensation, you get to say, well, this is actually what the market is facing in these conditions, and approximate that with a payment to a battery for dispatching. Um, the When we think about these programs right now, we're at the stage where we don't have batteries on every house. We don't have high penetration of batteries across the country. Places like Puerto Rico and California being an exception, and Texas certainly is growing. Um, but we're still in the process of deploying them everywhere. So now it's a lot easier for us to aim our batteries at the system. So we can say we know the system's going to peak at whatever it is, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and we can dispatch those batteries around like 2 hour, 3 hour window, however the program requires. That is, I think, kind of a unique, you know, that's kind of a unique opportunity we have here that's a little more specific than just a rate design. So you might hear some proponents saying that time of use rates could elicit these responses, but our experience has shown that virtual power plant programs have been very successful in getting new capacity, incremental capacity added when they're needed. And I'll give a couple examples of that a little bit later. But as we get into like the lower part of this list, and the bulleted list, we aren't talking about system peaks. We're starting to get into the fancier, kind of later stage evolution of virtual power plants where they might be used on a feeder or a circuit or a substation to avoid a distribution upgrade. Now, since a lot of what's driving utility spending these days is replacing old infrastructure, or modernizing and upgrading, capacity throughout the system, and certainly that's an issue in New Jersey with a lot of closed circuits for solar, that VPPs and batteries can do a lot to unlock that. So as we're getting into the future, we can do fancier and fancier things at the locational level, which I think even have a higher value, and really need to be leveraged and put into the way the utility plans their system. So a lot of really great potential will come from these programs that can start simple at aiming at system peaks, but can really evolve into something that is providing much broader and deeper uh, system benefits. And we can go to the next slide. And pardon me if I've skipped over any questions or hands. Are we good so far? All right, great. And I'll take another sip. Okay. And so one thing that we currently drives battery deployment. Uh, you can point to Puerto Rico as a perfect example. As a place where the grid is not reliable, and people that want to go solar and net meter to get bill savings, they desperately want to have reliability and resilience built in. So we see battery deployment, kind of taking off for that resilience value for for customers in their homes. And recent data, I wish I could have updated this with more recent than 2022, but there were a lot of calls to conserve and blackouts in that year. And I guess this summer, we're probably gearing up for a very, very hot, challenging summer this year. So I could imagine we're going to see a big portion of the country facing a lot of constraints. And not only that, like I guess it's the North American energy reliability. What is it? NERC. I know the acronym better than I know the how to say it. Their recent report shows that there's a really not many places in the country that aren't going to be under the gun when it comes to capacity needs in the next 5 to 10 years, and that there could be a real emergency. So reliability, keeping the lights on, these are all things that are driving and moving customers' motivations to add batteries, even without a way to use those batteries to generate additional revenue or to help the grid. So that's just a trend that we're seeing and that we think can benefit these policies because these assets are sitting there, hopefully not being used if the grid doesn't go down. So let's give them a day job. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So this is a bit of a snapshot, and I see my beloved Louisiana may have gotten sold back to the French, or half of it did. I don't know what happened to the map there. It's very interesting. Um, but these are to show some of the states that are in flight that have virtual power plants in the light blue. And I'm from North Carolina, so it's almost Carolina blue. I'm in Chapel Hill, and I guess the dark is Duke, so I won't politicize that too much. So we have active VPP battery programs in the Carolinas, which I have a slide which I'll get into a little more of the details there. But you still see there's a lot of pink on this map, and there's a lot of states that are starting down this path that aren't quite there yet. Maryland and Virginia both passed legislation 2 years ago, or last year in Virginia's case, 2 years in Maryland. And they're currently waiting for their utility commissions to approve programs that Dominion in Virginia has proposed, and all of the utilities in Maryland have. So we're, looking forward to adding some more dark blue to this map. Georgia Power, one of the first Southern utilities, and certainly the Southern Company is a very powerful entity in the Southeast. Because they have a lot of data center growth in Georgia, they entered a stipulation with some parties to try out a virtual power plant. And having spoken with them, I think they're very excited about being able to use customer assets to help meet those peak conditions, particularly as they keep adding more and more load. I'm sure you'd heard they built a nuclear plant, which was very expensive. And I think a lot of the capacity that opened up is probably already accounted for with new load that's coming in. So, kind of a postcard from the future, even where states that think they're very resource adequate, they're going to need these resources too. So, and as you see in the Northeast, really the place where the flag was planted first, Massachusetts has had the most successful, kind of the gold standard program, which we call connected solutions. So I'll point out here, without getting too much into the legal weeds of it all, but VPPs tend to be state retail programs. So these are programs that are like demand response. They're controlled by the states. They're compensated through either ratepayer funds or maybe state taxpayer funds might fund a program. And it's distinct from when we think about the wholesale market and the federally controlled energy system. Um, FERC, you may be aware, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, several years ago, did adopt through Order 2222 a standard that would allow the aggregation of small resources to be able to break down barriers to participate in the wholesale markets. Um, Unfortunately, that has still yet to be really deployed, and there are some really critical barriers for very small systems for residential customers to participate. I won't get into all of those, but it's just to say that the panacea of a federal solution wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Uh, it goes in the right direction and it's got the right idea, and we're very hopeful that we can fix it. And over time, that direct market participation kind of takes away I'm sure, as everyone is familiar with, the vagaries of state policy, the pendulum swings. It would be nice to have a stable access to a market where you can, really build a sustainable model on this. So yeah, I think I'll just say that about the where the action is right now is at the state level. And that's why it's so critical that states like New Jersey and leadership under Governor Sherrill with the executive order, that's why that's so significant, because without that, there's no access for residential solar and storage in PJM at the moment, and probably not for years to come, to be able to meaningfully participate. And if we could go to the next slide, please.
There is a question
Oh,
that
perfect.
in the chat. Gustavo is asking about the money flows and how that's structured. If you haven't gotten to that yet, then we can wait till we get there. But
No, 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 that's good. So there are a couple of different models. The connected solution model in Massachusetts, I pointed out, you could enroll as a customer that has a battery directly with the utility, and at that point, the any revenue flows from the utility in that program, based on your performance, those are all like pay for performance models, would go straight to the customer. And then in a situation like Sunrun, Tesla owned batteries, Sunrun owned batteries, we can aggregate those and have them participate in the programs without the customer having to enroll. And then we take off any administrative cost, and then there's a benefit provided to the customer. And because we own the battery, and we have a warranty to replace it if it needs replacing. So if we're overworking it, we're bearing the risk of replacing the battery within that 20 to 25-year customer agreement. So yeah, that it can be, trying to think, the more lucrative side, the BG&E F-150 example. This customer worked from home, so his truck was there plugged in all the time. And every time there was a dispatch call, he was able to blast it and send everything to the grid. And he made, I think, $1,700 over this one summer. So there's potential. And a lot of these programs, you can make up to that amount or more if you have multiple batteries for participating. So it is a viable revenue stream for, to make that investment, make a little more sense. If, I'd love to have a battery myself, and I don't yet, because we don't lose power where I'm at very often. But that one day of the year you do, you'd love to have it. So I'd love another justification to get the battery. So yeah, it was a great question. And then, does this take the place of net metering or SRECs? No, very good question. And it does not. I think, as I mentioned, net metering being the most successful policy we've seen to deploy systems. Um, Really, I think battery kind of piggybacks on the success of that policy. So you don't really see a lot of standalone batteries out there right now. I think it's probably less than 5%. Most people that have a battery also have solar, and they're using it in conjunction with net metering. In some states, and I probably can dig down a little bit, like Maryland and New Jersey, currently you're not allowed to export your battery if you're net metering because this is something we're hoping to get clarified because it's a very silly kind of argument that batteries aren't listed in the net metering statute as an eligible technology. But if you're only charging the battery from an eligible technology like solar, what's the problem? It's an enhancement to the solar. So I don't understand why that should be a barrier. And that's something, like I said, we will be working to remove that in the future. And as far as SRECs go, no, this wouldn't impact the receipt of payments for SRECs. Uh, there are some differences when if you just have solar, and I'm not sure of how this gets accounted for. If you're charging solar with, or your battery with solar, um, I'm not certain, and I can get some clarification on this, on how you're compensated for SRECs. Um, if part of your generation's being lost in the conversion process or in the round that they call the round trip efficiency losses between charging the battery and discharging it. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can figure that out and get back to you. And then one more here, and I'll finish this slide. So this is interested in the interconnection process of the VPP. Yeah, also a good question. This is coming up in some of the proceedings we're in, where utilities at first were being a little nervous. This is Maryland in particular, being a little nervous about allowing a solar customer with batteries to export and to compensate them for that export. So they were, saying, well, we really need to get more operational awareness to see what's happening in real time with this battery. How much is it dispatching? And then they finally came to see, well, this is just like the original interconnection agreement. There's an inverter usually, with our systems, at least most times, the solar and the storage use the same inverter. It's usually in the battery. And that kind of limits how much it could export to the grid. And so when the utility was evaluating whether this system needed upgrades, they're looking at how much it could export. That's already been established. So the utility in Maryland kind of figured that out and self-corrected. And so I think we're not going to have that problem. The conversation is live in New Jersey with the utilities. So again, that's something we're going to be working to advocate to make sure we don't create additional barriers to participation. Like if we had to submit a new application for interconnection to allow a battery to export, don't think that's necessary. And it's a huge imposition on the customer, probably going to drive a lot of people away from even wanting to do it. So really good question. And I apologize for all the cough. I just had a very minor oral surgery this week, so I'm still kind of nursing that.
That's perfectly fine.
So let's see. Yeah, getting into like the weeds here. I'm gonna pull this over so I can see it better. Um, as I mentioned, these are state programs that we can start easy, start simple. The easy button is press it to hit reduce peaks. Um, Pay for performance is really a model we like because it takes away the argument that you might be overcompensating. That if you're going to give someone a lump sum of say $10,000 to here's your battery, you're not really getting a guarantee that they're going to be using that battery the way it needs to be used. But if you're paying them based on how it's performing, then there's really no argument that it's cost effective as long as the rates are designed right, compensation is designed right. It's a win-win for everyone because you're reducing peaks, reducing the price of wholesale power, which is actually helping to drive down the cost for everyone. As I mentioned, we're starting to see some locational use cases of our batteries. We have a pilot going on with PG&E right now, where it's kind of focused on one feeder with, I think or maybe it's a circuit with like about 600 customers with batteries. And so kind of experimenting with, can we use these batteries and dispatch them to reduce the local peaks to avoid having to upgrade equipment. And so that's going to be really interesting when that resolves and gets a study published. I think that'll be really great. Connected Solutions, as I mentioned in Massachusetts, has already started offering a Connected Solutions Plus. That is a plus for if you're located on a constrained feeder or area, there'll be an additional payment for your dispatches because they just, uh, without it being scientific and mathematically precise, they know that you're in this area, you're providing some benefit. We're going to kind of approximate that and give you a little bit of a bonus. So on these bottom boxes, really kind of getting into the people that can make a VPP launch. I mean, you obviously need the regulators and the commission, the BPU in New Jersey to get behind it and set the rules and make sure that they're looking at it the right way and validating that it's working, but also not trying to have a failed program. Like let's get this thing working and want it to be cost effective and want it to succeed. So we need the willingness of the regulators to kind of get in there and join us in this kind of partnership. The utilities, I mean, on their part, is to try and be as efficient as possible. A lot of times the utilities will want to get, what's called here the DERMS. So it's like a distributed energy resource management system. We don't think that's necessary at stage one where we're just addressing peaks. You can, and honestly, this happens. We get our communications from the utility via email, like the day before, of like, hey, tomorrow 4 to 6, we're calling an event, and then confirm receipt, and it's going to dispatch, and we'll share our data. We don't need to have a $1 million or $10 million software upgrade to get that done. So let's not let perfect be enemy of the good. Let's get rolling and use the simple technology we can do to pull this off. Um, as we get down the road and we're doing more locational, complicated things, then absolutely, then we can be working toward and building toward a more complicated, integrated software platform and hardware for platform that utility would have. Um, with utilities, you also need aggregators. So third parties that would be Sunrun, Tesla, others that have customers with batteries that can really help with the process of enrolling customers and coordinating the dispatches of all these batteries. Like it's pretty hard to give a utility to try to do something new to figure out how to dispatch 10,000, 20,000 customer devices with a technology they maybe don't have experience with, but it's really easy to let the companies that are already doing that. And there are plenty of other aggregators out there that have their own platforms that have been tested in the field, so to speak, already. So you need those players, but the most important player, as I alluded to at the beginning, is the customer. You have to have the customer that is invested in the system that has and hosts the asset. Um, you want it to be as seamless as possible for them. I mean, they have a battery in their house for a reason. They don't want the battery down to zero, and then the power goes out, and they're like, "Well, that's great. I'm glad I got an extra $10 for this, but I'd much rather have the battery." So we have to balance all those things and have policies that when a big storm is coming. I think like Tesla has a feature in their Powerwall where it's like Storm Watch, where you can opt out of anything, or it automatically will opt you out 24 hours in advance of a major storm where outages are likely. So those things are all very critical for a successful program. And if we could go to next slide, I'm going to pick up the pace on these as we go here. So to get into some examples here, I can start with North Carolina. We had been, and actually this started while I was at Vote Solar. Um, there was a statute that required a transition away from net metering, and we worked with Duke Energy and others to come up with a solution that would move to time of use rates, slightly modify the net metering mechanism, so it wasn't the same as currently exists in New Jersey. It was now monthly netting on a time of use rate. Well, part of the idea was that we wanted to do batteries right out of the gate, but the settlement with Duke was to do smart thermostats and solar and to give customers an upfront payment of about 36 cents a watt. So for a 10 kW system, about $3,600 uh, to agree to enroll in the smart thermostat program for the life of the system. That did not get approved in South Carolina, and the same thing was proposed in North Carolina. And the North Carolina Commission did a very interesting thing. Instead of rejecting it outright, the first line of the order was like, "Yeah, we don't approve that, but here's what you're going to do." They said you're going to offer a solar and storage incentive. Um, oh, sorry, if we can go back to the last slide with the Power Pair program. You're going to offer an upfront payment for batteries, and you're going to have ongoing payments for those that want to do demand response. So I think, is the first, if you excluding Puerto Rico, would be the first state in the Southeast to do a battery demand response virtual power plant program. It because it was funded and had an upfront incentive, it really did help deploy. So we have, I think, about 60 megawatts statewide from that program that are currently, I think they're all installed at this point and able to operate and perform. So big success story there. Of course, it had its cost of these upfront payments, but eventually that could evolve into a pay for performance model, kind of like we had discussed earlier. If we go to the next slide, I think that's the one might be looking for. And again, thanks so much for doing this, Steve. I appreciate it. Um, so moving out of North Carolina and going back to, connected solutions, and I've already said a lot of this about what makes what makes that work. But one of the most important ones, and I think something that, we've advocated for at the BPU, is having some certainty about what this revenue stream or how long it's going to be available. So currently, 5 years, that the year you enroll, what the capacity payment will be, and that payment is locked in for 5 years. It could be the case, and we're seeing that with PJM, obviously, that capacity costs keep going up and up. So maybe they're getting a very good deal by locking you in at this one capacity rate. Or maybe the capacity costs go down in year 4 or 5. But on average, it's a nice risk-sharing mechanism where customers get the certainty they need, that they can count on the fact if we dispatch our battery and perform the way that we know we can count on getting, $1,200, $1,500 in addition to, and this is very important in Massachusetts, in addition to net metering. So this is all separating out the fact that you're trading electrons, you're trading energy with net metering, and you're calling on a battery at a particular time. You're providing capacity at that point. So you're separating out, compensation for energy and compensation for capacity. A lot of debate could be had around if that's true or not, but we don't have to do that tonight. Um, Another feature of this is they do put limits and parameters, and this is in one of the previous slides I mentioned the roles of the commission in building those parameters is saying, well, let's build it that's feasible. It's worth it. There's enough events that it's going to provide benefits to the grid, but there's also enough events, and they're of the right duration that customers can meaningfully participate and be compensated. So shorter windows, because most of the power walls and the other home batteries that are out there, they're kind of 4 hour batteries. But the more you can narrow the band, if you want to dispatch for 2 hours, you can draw more power from the battery at that time. So you could actually get more capacity if the shorter the window is. So that is a factor that we always bring up is let's have really tightly defined hours. But if we're in a place where the peak really is kind of jumping all over the place when you look in history, and it's that you need a 4 hour band, then you need a 4 hour band. We'll do it. It just means we'll dispatch less energy consistently over 4 hours rather than just really blasting it for 2 hours. And I mentioned the last bullet already that having a storm provision to allow that customer experience to be preserved so that you get to use the battery for what you invested in it for, which is, backup and that resilience. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please.
Ted, quickly before you go
Yep.
on, I don't know if you can answer this, but do you happen to know what the return on investment of the Puerto Rico project was.
That I don't know. Those programs don't have a 5-year lock-in, but they they have been extremely important programs for the health of the grid. Last summer, I mean, I think we're talking the scale of it right now is we're talking like 50 or 60 megawatts worth of batteries when they're all aggregated. And of course, the island has pretty severe capacity needs. We were able to avoid rolling blackouts on this last summer through these battery programs. And there's some, you could Google, I think Utility Dive or some other folks covered that. But between all the participants, which includes Tesla and Sunrun's batteries and others, we're able to kind of avoid that. So ROI for a customer, um, they're baking in the resilience kind of value in Puerto Rico where there are very frequent outages. So it kind of becomes a complicated. It's not the same old solar payback period calculation of the past. Now you're really kind of putting intangibles like how much does it take to restock my fridge, or just have to stay in a hotel because it's too hot, or all those things. That value of resilience, which no utility commission has really kind of drilled down on the right way to do that. I think that's going to be a very important thing that they do consider because it's a real value to customers and something that they should be promoting. It's the quality of life. Um, okay, let's see where.
Yeah,
One
well,
more question.
Chris has a
Oh, great!
follow-up,
I love questions, so this is great.
uh, which is,
Yes.
do you know of any such program uh, that you can calculate the payback on the battery if someone buys a battery for this?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. So in well, okay, this is a little different, but in California, there's a disclosure requirement when you have a new system. You have to show it's not necessarily the payback, but it's like the year one savings. So they don't require you to look over the life of the system because that I guess they acknowledge that that's too hard. But there are instances where you do have to provide like year one savings or show what those are. And in some cases, if you stack multiple batteries because you really value having that backup power, and you want to be able to run everything without any interruption, then it maybe there isn't a year one savings. That's possible. So I think that's something that's maybe going to change the way solar is sold and presented with storage, is that there's more to it than kind of the old way of like looking at payback periods. But in some places where the rates are high or where there is a good bankable program like Connected Solutions, then it certainly can factor into like kind of whether this is going to be an economic investment, not just a resilience investment. So yeah, I think that is. I don't know of anywhere that's really explicit, or where that's being sold that way, because I do think it's like the resilience value really does uh, currently drive currently drive things.
My question
Okay,
had to do
thank you.
with specifying a window in which you have to plan ahead to handle additional load in that window. But are there platforms that are fast enough so that you can respond to real-time peaks? How much time do you really need?
Yeah, that now another really good question. I'd say right now, because a lot of our systems are on the simple program of you give us a 24-hour notice, or it could be less, um, then we can do that. But we're getting to the point, and we're not far away from this being commonplace, where it is more, you could have more real-time controls. And batteries automatically, like let's take for example, um, solar has, you can have a smart inverter. And so it can autonomously respond to grid conditions and modify. The battery absolutely can do the same thing. So if you've got it kind of programmed, you could do some pretty dynamic things right there at the customer's house that respond in real time to signals. So I think there's that angle of it, but then there's also, I think this really will come up as we're doing more locational, and that gets a lot more sophisticated. And then you really do need to have those more instantaneous types of commands and answers, but batteries can react like milliseconds. So it's a great technology. I think it's a what makes it such a valuable grid asset is because it's so flexible and can turn on a dime. But it's just realizing and getting to the point where we have enough batteries to leverage all those higher functions. Then they're certainly doable. And they're there.
I'm asking this because I saw a proposal, thought it was implemented already. They're starting to use or plan to use AI to have instant response. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's feasible. But
it definitely can be. I know for some like low home management software, that's using AI to kind of look at and iterate every day using meteorological data, kind of what you expect. And we use this internally. This is a really sophisticated system. I think it's a grid share from Lunar, where they iterate using meteorological data and they plot out the most efficient way based on your kind of historic usage. And it might even account for day of the week. It'll look back in history and see, and it will optimize your use of the battery to get the best economic outcome. So that's on the customer level, being able to kind of do those sophisticated calculations and get the best use out of the battery so that you're responding to the rate signal. The same thing can be done when there are real-time price signals. We don't have those really in many places where you have like dynamic electric rates. But in places like Great Britain and I think even maybe in Japan, Lunar has some experience, really having their software being interactive with wholesale prices and being able to optimize the customer's economics for the battery against that. So it certainly is out there. Um, like I said, I'm not familiar with in the US where that's really happening, but definitely can happen. The technology's there.
And this is just a comment for Chris. Mike has put a reference in the chat to Energy Save to do your calculation for you.
Okay, great. No, that's
Uh,
great.
is this the slide you wanted to be on, that, or
I think go forward for me. There will be, I think we get to New Jersey finally. After all that yammering, can
there we
finally
go. Thank
uh,
you.
land the plane hopefully here. So yeah, we've been at this for a while with the BPU, with the bill that passed about, I guess it was 4 years ago, establishing a battery storage goal, and been lots of rounds of comments. We had a straw proposal that the BPU staff put out, looking at the VPP portion of that being kind of deferred until the phase two of that Garden State Energy Storage Program being deferred until sometime indeterminate in 2026. Well, I think the governor's executive order maybe put a little finer point on when that would start, by giving a 180-day kind of deadline to get things initiated. And so we're halfway through that 180 days now. So I think we'll anticipate the BPU putting some things out, and then the utilities will have to make filings where they propose. The very broad kind of strokes of the proposal, that the staff proposal, and this table kind of shows for the very small systems, certainly everything small commercial and residential would fit in this bucket, looking at a total incentive of $300 a kilowatt hour. And so if you look at say a Tesla Powerwall that has 13 and a half kilowatt hours, you can do the math and say, well, this is generally how much money that would provide for that. The trick here is they intend to have one portion of the incentive to be upfront. So that would, and we're not sure what that's going to be. Whenever I guess the utilities would propose their own. So that would be an upfront payment to help bring down the cost of purchasing and installing. And then there would be a pay for performance portion that, as long as you're participating fully, I think you could realize this maximum amount. So they wanted to model that part of it, the performance model, after connected solutions, which we applaud. But I think even if we had said, give us all performance, I think they wanted to, see this as an opportunity or maybe the necessity to help encourage deployment of batteries by giving an upfront incentive. So that's the general approach that they're hoping to take. I know Sunrun and others that have been advocates and working on this for years are, really excited, chomping at the bit to get it going. So we want the opportunity to get this worked out and to launch it as soon as possible, so that we can show that if you build it, they will come. Like we can do the field of dreams. To be a small scale the first year. But I think there's so much potential in New Jersey for batteries to play a big role and hopefully come to save the day as we're dealing with all the PGM constraints and drama, quite frankly. So let me see if there was another. Oh, okay. So the minimum recommended storage capacity of a home-based battery, and what would the size battery roughly cost? So I'd say range wise, I think like a Tesla Powerwall or Franklin or Enphase batteries, they're all going to be, I would think, between 13 to 20 kilowatt hours of, stored energy. The capacity, so how much you can actually power all at once in the home, the Tesla Powerwall 3, I believe, is at 11 and a half kilowatts. So that's pretty good. You could run a lot of your appliances. You wouldn't be able to run them for very long if you were cranking the AC, unless you had a second one. So, so if you're talking about a range of 12 to $16,000 fully installed with all the, any kind of electrical upgrades or main panel upgrades that you need, um, then it's a significant investment. So any upfront payment's gonna help that and kind of make it a little easier. I would say a good example. Let's take the F-150 Lightning I mentioned. That's got 100 and I think it's 113 kilowatt hours in it. So it's like 10, almost like 10 power walls on wheels. You could power your house for like 3 days, is what Ford has said on that. And if you had solar, you could recharge it and keep going. So if you had a long outage, I've always thought all these apocalypse shows or zombie shows, they should have someone with like an EV and a battery and solar. Come on, this is it was a no-brainer. Just waiting there for Hollywood to embrace it. So uh, anyway, I'm a deeply unserious person. That's not apparent enough already. But let's see. Let's go to the next slide. And we have a real life example of batteries kind of being used. I don't know the scale of this program yet, but Jersey City Power and Light, Tesla has a program where they will use their batteries, and I believe these are standalone, so no solar involved, just the battery. I could be wrong, but that's my current understanding of this program. And so you can get paid $100 per kW of your average performance. So like I mentioned before, if you had a Tesla Powerwall that has 13 and a half kilowatt hours and you're dispatching for 4 hours and you want to save some in the tank, let's just say you're doing, three and a half, kW, or two even. So you might make $200. I think maybe the Powerwall 3 has more kilowatt hours than I'm saying. I know it was the Powerwall 2 had 13 and a half. So um, I think they did the estimate on a Powerwall 3 that if you save 20% of your battery for backup, dispatch the rest whenever you're called on, you could make $360 off that program. That is a lot less than Connected Solutions in Massachusetts, which I believe is paying about 275 a kW. And that's also based on average performance. But those are different programs. This at least there's something that's kind of in flight already, and we can expand that with the coming phase two of the Garden State Energy Storage Program. And one thing I put here in the parenthetical is this is a great opportunity to fix this kind of confusion over net metering and to say, if you have a storage, you should be able to dispatch it to the grid as long as it's only being charged from a net metering eligible generating resource. So I'm very confident it's just a common sense argument that we can get over that barrier, and we'll do our best to get all the other barriers removed, that we can have a more streamlined, simple process to get this whole program rolling. But again, just wanted to highlight, at least there's something in flight that we can say the batteries are working. Um, and to back that out, because I know I've been talking a very long time, uh, all the way up till 8. Like I said, I wouldn't. That's amazing. Uh, we did a test event this year just to show the scale that's possible in California. I think we had about 70,000 of our customers participating. Combined with Tesla, we dispatched for 2 hours on a late July night. It was, I think, over 630 megawatts just of home batteries. So that's a really impressive scale. This was the first year that I think we kind of got the world's attention that home batteries, when you pile them together, really are something. They took down, I think it was the California system peak. These home batteries took it down 2% on that day. So it's possible as we get deployment and batteries are ubiquitous in New Jersey. This could be an outcome that we are shaving material levels of capacity off at a time when it's obviously been a crisis mode with PJM and everything else and the cost. So yeah, we're very excited about the opportunity of this policy to do a lot of good things on affordability and advanced clean energy. So sorry, kind of wrapping up. I know I'm sorry I talked way more than I thought I was going to that whole hour. So I appreciate the platform. Oh,
That was very interesting, Mike. Can you hear me? Tad, can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
Oh, good. So, so you can't really think of these as kind of like a true ROI because you're going to get these, let's say, seasonal payments, let's say, based on the contract that you have. So you're really, so your justification is still the same, as you said, to have backup power for your home.
Mhm.
The F-150 thing is really awesome. When you think about, you could buy an F-150 used and you get the battery basically for free in that scenario.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Right.
Um, it's very intriguing. Um, is there a liability of any kind to the utility?
Mhm.
In other words, because you're contracting to do this, do you have to be available? Does it have to be available at all times? Or if you take the truck on the trip to the store and they say, "Whoa, where's your truck?" Right? That do you have a liability that way?
Okay, no, really good question. The way that these are currently structured, and at least the retail programs, if you're in the wholesale market, then you have some skin in the game. And if you don't perform, there could be penalties. It could be, pretty messy. The retail programs, they are the pay for performance, basically is just counting on the incentive of getting paid to get people to show up. And when we spread the risk of non-performance over thousands, tens of thousands of customers, we found that the lack of the people that are sitting out are very small numbers. So we don't want to overpromise how much capacity is going to be available, but to use our best data and historic, uh, experience with how people are participating to show that yes, you can count on reliably that you're going to get, this many megawatts in an event like this. But no, that's a lot of the critique you might hear from utilities or others. Can we count on it? Well, nothing's perfect. They have plants go down all the time too. So everyone has an outage rate. So you have to build in some tolerance for risk into anything you're building and counting on. But I think the VPPs and batteries have shown a pretty good track record to the extent of like a truck when you're counting on vehicle to grid. Absolutely, you have to count for the use of those vehicles. People bought them to move them around, or maybe they found a really good deal on a used Lightning and they can make more money just arbitraging it. That would be something.
I I think you got something there. I think that'll pay for a couple months payments anyway.
Right, right, right. And I have seen utilities. I think Duke piloted something where they would actually give money toward they would actually pay off part of your monthly lease payment if you were enrolled in a program. And the problem was it was too early. They didn't get enough enrollment, so they had to cancel the program. But the utilities are starting to think like that. How can we incentivize people into this direction? I think Sunrun's thinking about this too. We want people to electrify. We want people to have heat pumps, EVs, because it's more load that we can help serve locally and help manage and possibly leverage all that to get compensated by these retail programs. So yeah, I think our interest and very interested in electrification.
Yeah, and the homeowners are paying the capital costs to install all these batteries. It's not like Sunrun or the state has to build a huge battery array somewhere and handle all that capital expense themselves. The homeowner is paying for it. So it's kind of like an interesting payback in a sense. Well,
Right.
thanks, Chad. That was really interesting.
Oh, Pat, are you speaking?
Sorry, I'm on mute. A two-part question from Jeffrey. The first one is is there a maintenance cost for solar panels, home battery, or is any maintenance required? Oh, you're on mute now.
Oh no, thank you. Yeah, my turn. My turn. So yeah, it looks like somebody was starting to answer that and I don't have any good numbers on like what those costs are, but yeah, there certainly are maintenance, replacing inverters. The battery itself is fairly low maintenance, but we constantly monitor our fleet to make sure that they're charging properly, that they're responding to signals. So there's a lot of kind of upkeep that we do on the back end in the office to make sure that everything's able to dispatch. We have a whole grid services team that I think about 10 or 11 people now that are monitoring our fleets batteries, which are, up to 236,000 devices right now. Probably that just keeps growing. So it's pretty amazing to see what they do.
Did I understand correctly from the beginning that you own your entire fleet and everything is leased or power payments?
In most cases, that's true. And I think you'll see probably us and others getting more into helping aggregate systems we don't own. So if we can help, provide the same service that we've already built up our platform to, manage and aggregate and dispatch batteries. So if we can extend that and provide that service to someone that's not our customer, then that's something I think that would be interesting. And I think that a lot of other aggregators are looking at doing that, particularly as we get more and more devices that could be used. Batteries just being one of the few, other than EVs, that could dispatch energy into the grid rather than just taking load off and shedding load.
Great, thank you. And different topic entirely. How or can a home battery be configured to displace a generator like a Generac for when the power goes out?
Right, right. And I think that would be a matter of your individual home needs, of how much capacity, like all at once, you need. Sometimes when people have a battery, they might just wire it to some critical circuits so to make sure that they've got the refrigerator, some key lights going, but they may not try to power their central heat and air. But if someone wanted to do that, they would, probably have a lot more battery, a couple of batteries added to be able to manage that. So yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't get may have strayed from the question, but that's true. And
That's okay. It was
but
kind of
the
off
Generac,
topic.
yeah, no, the Generac question.
Another one that's kind of off topic is any thoughts about the Tesla roof to cover your existing roof tiles instead of replacing them?
Oh, right. I remember seeing when they first came out, but I haven't followed the Tesla roof as much. I'm not currently sure where that's at, or whether they're still. I mean, I think they're still manufacturing it and promoting it, but I don't have any visibility into the that product versus the one that we do, just as mounting panels on the roof. But
Okay.
it is interesting. I know it's probably a little more of an expensive route to do it. But again, if it's durable for a very long time, then I mean, I replaced my roof 10 years ago, so that's not a small cost.
Yeah. Well, here's a comment from Howie. He says, I can't speak to the home battery. My solar panels, though, get washed down once in a while. After 9 years, I had a problem with an inverter.
Um,
The manufacturer sent me a new one on warranty, and I installed it myself. And he says, by the way, Generac now sells a battery system.
they sure do. They sure do. And they have I believe they own a smart thermostat device too. So they've branched out.
Okay. Here's another hard one, I guess. Jeffrey says, what is contained in an optimal contract for a VPP?
Oh gosh, good question. Pro
I know you could write a paper on that.
No, no, for sure. I think the most, yeah, in the right order of importance, certainty over time. So like a 5 year, 5 or 10 year lock-in to know that what the value would be, that would be really helpful. Then like a very good, compensation rate based on market conditions. So it's like a market, we like to say market reflective, but not market integrated. So we don't have to participate in the wholesale market, but we are helping the utility reduce the wholesale costs that they have to pay, so that could be reflected. But honestly, for these programs to be durable and successful, they need to provide savings to all ratepayers. So we also want there to be some juice left for all ratepayers to see savings.
I don't know if anyone can do this, but Edward asks, can you share in the chat a link to the New Jersey program being developed? I
I
doubt if there is a link.
There is. Let me see if I can. I think I pull up the BPU on my other screen here while we're talking. I can get that pretty quick.
Here,
Um,
Michael says, and he knows the answer. PSE&G has a small VPP pilot, 8 kilowatt batteries for $5,000. Thoughts? What do you think of the Minnesota XL decision, and why did they do that?
oh, right. And so that was like the distributed capacity procurement, and which is a little different than a VPP, at least in my eyes, because it's only customer sided, but it's front of the meter, so it's not serving any domestic load or commercial load. It's just they're getting paid to host utility equipment essentially at their site. Um, so but they do call it, I think when they pitched it as calling it a VPP because they're going to aggregate these resources and um, I think put them in the wholesale market. So to that extent, yes, it's an aggregation of resources, but it doesn't really strike. I think what VPP has the attractiveness to me is because it's a customer-driven program that customers are the ones that make it successful. And it's not just up to the utility how much they want to build. It's like if customers have built all this themselves, uh, then use it. It's there. So that's what I love about a VPP versus a utility driven procurement model like that.
Okay, here's the last question. And again, I don't know whether you can answer this or not, but uh, are you familiar with the Green Mountain program in Vermont?
Yes, definitely am. And I'm going to I got the link. make sure this is the right one. This is 20. Oh shoot. I'm just gonna give the docket link, the docket number in here. Sorry, I'll do this quickly. So this is the docket number, and then here is the link, which I think will link you to the docket page. And then you would just look at notices from the BPU staff. And
I
there
think
is one.
you can search on the docket number. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I think so. And it's the straw proposal was included in one of the notices from the BPU staff. Um, so let's see, back to the regularly scheduled program. What was the question I was about to answer? I'm sorry, the last question.
Uh, now two more questions. It was
Uh,
the Vermont, the
oh
Green
yeah,
Mountain.
yeah. Yep. So our Sunrun CEO, Mary Powell, was the CEO of Green Mountain Power when that program started. So that was unique. Batteries were still there, were maybe 3 or 4 thousand residential batteries in the country at the time, or it was pretty small. It was more than 3,000, but very early stages. And that was a model where the utility owns the battery. And because reliability is challenging in Vermont, um, people could pay a premium to lease the battery for $50 a month or whatever it was. So they'd have the backup power. And then Green Mountain Power, because they own the battery, would dispatch it during summer peaks and produce, savings for everybody by reducing their peaks. Um, so it was a successful program in that sense, and it's continued to grow. I forget how many participants there are now, but it still is kind of the utility-owned model of the virtual power plant. So it's kind of the first example that batteries can be aggregated. But again, to my point before, let's open it up for customers and customers that own the batteries or lease the batteries, whatever, to be able to also benefit from those programs. So that I think that's kind of where we've seen an evolution, that it was an important first step, but I think what we're seeing now is, going to overtake models like that. Utilities always love to own everything, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of proposals coming all around the country for utilities that want to own batteries on customers' homes. Uh, but it remains to be seen what customers want when it comes to that.
Okay, this really is going to be the last question, but but first I'll say Chris's comment, which is considering the money the grid utilities save from not having to build a power plant, there should be significant incentives offered to homeowners who invest in batteries and interconnections and take that cost. I agree with that. But,
Yes, yes.
but now the question from Jeffrey. Um, oh, to charge an EV directly from solar panels. Is that feasible, or is a battery needed as the intermediary?
Yeah,
Intermediary.
yeah, I think it's definitely feasible to charge. I mean, you pass this through your inverter and it would go into your home. There certainly are like solar charging stations I've seen. But if you're doing charging at home, yeah, it's certainly feasible to, matter of fact, there are some times where, if you don't have a good net metering policy, the value of anything you export to the grid is low. So you would love to soak up all that, locally generated power and not have to export it. So having an EV standing by, like, okay, anything more than what we need in the house, let's charge it. So yeah, no, I think it's definitely feasible and desirable.
Okay, thank you so much. And there are several thank yous in the chat. Steve says we send the recording and slide links to all who registered. And that's it for me.
We have a New Jersey electrification coaching network that helps people for free. A bunch of coaches all through New Jersey, and will help you with the VPP as well if you like.
Excellent.
So
Oh,
you'll see a
fantastic.
link. You'll see a link in the chat.
Oh yeah, no, I see that. No, thanks. So this has been great. I really appreciate all of your time and definitely cutting into the night. So I appreciate I appreciate that and your attention. So it's great. It's
And,
good to meet
Mike
you all.
corrected us, which is true. Utilities do not build power plants. Investors build power plants.